Hey everybody, Stephen Lee here from the Archie Bray Foundation. We're back with another live broadcast. I wanted to say thanks to all of you who tuned in last week. We had more people than we would have ever anticipated. It was great to be able to connect with you. We really appreciated the comments, some of the suggestions about how to make the production value a little better. We are back with upgraded equipment, and we have some different cool lenses and stuff, so hopefully it will be a little bit easier for everybody to see and hear. I'm also joined by my co-host, Lindsay Carroll, who...
Hey folks.
Lindsay's our education manager, and she is the person behind the camera, which I think that question came up a bit last week. So Lindsay and I will be having a conversation today in the studio. We took note of a lot of the questions that came up last week, and wanted to just give some updates about what's happening here on the Bray. So today I do want to mention that we just found out the state of Montana is going to be under a shelter-in-place restriction starting tonight at midnight, which is a little bit of a surprise, but we sort of felt like it was going to come at some point anyway. So today I think a lot of us have been really trying to understand what that means for us as an organization, how it affects our operations and the programs. So I don't really have all the answers just yet, and I'll be really honest about that. We're trying to figure that out, what that means for us. But I will say that we're committed to trying to find any way that we can serve our community while being respectful of the intent of the shelter-in-place law, which is to keep everybody safe and slow down this whole virus spread. So where the clay business folks are working to see what the restrictions are for them, what the limitations are, how they can continue to fulfill orders and provide essential services to our operations, by providing pickup orders and things like that. Because it's like a lot of folks are at home. The clay business has actually been really busy because so many people are at home trying to figure out what to do with their kids, with themselves. So we want to be able to provide the materials and tools and supplies needed there. Education has also been staying busy, developing digital content and really trying to help offer some respite from all of us just being sort of quarantined. So I think that there are a number of ways we're just looking at how we can try to adjust and adapt, because that's what we can do right now. And one thing I've been thinking a lot about is that I feel really lucky to work with a staff that is creative and innovative, because we have these two qualities that are really sort of necessary at this time, and all the staff and all the residents and everybody have just been very adaptable, trying to be optimistic about how to move forward. And while it's very scary for all of us on a lot of different levels, we're just going to forge ahead and try to, I think it's more important than ever that we all kind of band together as people, as a community. All the clay artists, all the past residents, all the board members, we've been hearing from all kinds of folks, and just it makes us feel so great that you're all connected and are here for us to support us, and we want to do the same for you. So we'll continue to do these live broadcasts. Today there's a bit of a different format that we learned from last week. We're gonna do the live stream on Instagram on Fridays, and then we'll post that video to Facebook. The reason is that we couldn't figure out a way to post simultaneously without using two phones, and that was part of the difficulty of getting a good shot.
So if you have any suggestions on how to do it, feel free to comment below. We'll figure it out.
Definitely, yeah. Send us any comments, any feedback that you have. I guess the other thing, and I do have a little, kind of like a cut sheet here, just trying to make sure we cover all the things that we've wanted to, and answer people's questions. So we'll kind of go over that. I think for today, to kind of keep things a little bit on the lighter side, we thought it might be nice to continue the process of making the cups from last week. So I threw about maybe 4 cups on camera, and then after we finished the broadcast, I finished the rest of them. I ended up making about 15 or so. So I'm going to trim them, and I'll talk a little bit about my process for trimming. We had some comments from people that they were really interested in just the different processes that we all use. I had a great message from Tim Rhoda and he said, hey, your wheel's just going so much faster than mine, and things like that I think are really great for us to just be able to see what everybody's doing in the studio and how our processes are different. And if there are any questions that come up about that, I'm more than happy to answer them. And then I'll do a little bit of decorating, because there was a comment about that, just how do I do the inlay, and I can show on a couple of pieces how that works. And then at the end, we're going to try to head outside, because I think there is a kiln that's being loaded today, so we thought we might be able to share that with you. Katie Dryber and Victoria Kristen are loading a soda kiln. So we'll start there.
I'm going to give a quick shout out to Mandy Salov Ceramics that just said hello. Hi back. We miss you. Miss your smiling face. I hope all is well with you, and I assume you're still out in Seattle. Hope Seattle's doing okay. We're really thinking about Pottery Northwest, so we send you our love.
Yeah, it was so wonderful to see all the former residents, board members, artists from all around the country that have spent some time with us, or not, but were tuning in and engaged with, what's going on here at the Bray. So we really just appreciate everybody being involved in that way. So I guess the first thing I want to point out here is this is my little humidity box. Started using this, maybe it's about 2013, I think. And I know a lot of other folks have been using these, but I just never used them. And what it is it's a Tupperware box with a layer of plaster poured in the bottom of it. And then you just soak the plaster in water once it dries, so it maintains a certain level of humidity in the box. What it helps for me is that when I throw my cups, when they're drying out, oftentimes they dry out very unevenly just because of the way the air is moving. So when I would go to trim, it would kind of trim a little bit more where it was soft and then a little bit less where it was hard. So I felt like I was always fighting the kind of homogeneous wetness. I don't know if that's the right term, but then I had seen this somewhere, I can't remember where, maybe I think Jeremy Hatch had a small one of these. But I made these, and then now when I throw them, I dry them out, and then I put them in this box, and then over a couple of days it actually will evenly hydrate the piece, so that when I'm trimming, it's much easier to get an even trimming line.
Can I ask you a quick question, Steve?
Sure.
I'm seeing some green stuff in there. Do you find mold? Oh, it just flipped on me. That's interesting. Pardon me as I'm figuring out these buttons. Do you find mold is a problem? This is my question.
They will mold, or little traces of mold, so I just end up washing that out, or sometimes I'll actually just dry them out completely and then rehydrate them again. You can also sort of sand down the interior to clean them up, or get rid of some of that mold coloration.
Okay. But not a problem, really.
Yeah, not too much of an issue.
Nice.
I hope. I don't know about you all, but I wish I had invested some stock in the hand lotion industry, because with all this hand washing, my fingers are just turning into leather gloves. Okay, so this is my trimming setup. I've got this sticky bat that I got from Diamond Core Tools, which has this little sticky surface on I think it's a Creative Industry bat. And then the way I trim, and this has evolved over the years, is I use these bisque chucks. And this is a cone shape that I threw one time, and I keep it in a bucket of water and just keep it soaked. And what's nice about the sticky bat is it helps hold it in place. So I put that on the wheel, and then I tap it on center.
Do you find when you're bisquing chucks that you have to bisque it to any other temperature than your normal bisque?
I bisque this to 08, which is my normal bisque temperature, but I'm sure, it just depends how porous. Maybe it would make a difference, but I didn't try it. So it's still a little bit wet, and the nice thing about soaking is that now it should help by sticking to the clay. So I put this on here, and then I tap that on center. And by the way, tapping on center is a skill I think a lot of people could learn, but you just got to put the time in and practice it. But man, it saves me so much time in the studio. The other thing that I have is I always throw with a mirror in front of me. you know, check out my hair, but then also it helps me so that I can just see the profile of the cup, and then when I'm tapping I can see whether it's online or offline.
Hey Steve, can you give me some space and I'll show the
Sure.
viewers what that looks like? Thanks.
6
feet.
distance.
That's right. Great. That's not 6 feet, Steve.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, nice try.
Forgot there was a mirror there. Okay. Okay, so one of the things when I was showing how to throw off the hump, it does sometimes create an uneven base. So usually the first step for me is I'm trying to level off the base. So I take my trusty trim tool, and I'm just trying to get this as level as I can to start. Then I will use this trim tool to kind of even out the side. Sometimes this does move a little bit on me because there's still some moisture on the bottom. Let's tap it back.
One of the things that I remember someone sharing when I was trying to learn how to tap on center was fill a coffee can or yogurt container or something with pennies, something that's really heavy, and then tap that on center. Have you heard that? Have you ever tried that?
That's a great idea. Or, I mean, you could practice with a heavy bucket, something full of water. Not too much water, but... or even these bisque chucks work pretty well to just practice on. So what I'm doing here is I'm establishing the base of the cup. And there's different things, like for me, if I have a shape like this, which is just kind of the rounded sides, I could choose to make a continuous form and not have this line here, or I can trim this line into the form, which then gives me a place to think about where the decoration starts and begins on the other side. I'm going to leave it and then kind of accentuate that, so I can take it up a little bit. Okay, so now that that's pretty well established here, I'll start trimming the interior of the foot. And I'll show you the tools that I'm using here. These are my favorite trim tools. I usually use these three. This is like the trusty Dolan trim tool. I think it's number 510. Yeah, there you go, 510. I love this tool. I think I'm just so used to it because I've been using it for so many years that like I know exactly, you know, my hand just goes to certain places with it. Like we all probably have a different shape that once you get used to it, just becomes really natural. And then these two tools are made by Bison Tools out of, I think, Nevada. And the difference is that these blades are made out of a tungsten carbon steel, or tungsten carbide, sorry. So they're incredibly sharp. You don't have to really sharpen them at all. The one caveat, though, is if you drop it on the ground, it'll break. It's very brittle. So there's a bit of a payoff. They're also kind of expensive, but for me, I do so much trimming that it felt like a worthwhile investment. I mean, I've had this one for probably 6-7 years, and it's almost as sharp as it was when I bought it. So I'm often kind of going back and forth between different trim tools, depending on the shape or the angle that I need. I did want to talk a bit about, one of the other responses that we saw this past week was that a number of people signed up for memberships at the Bray. which is really amazing. I mean, it was so great to see, people that we knew, or some new folks who signed up, because, that support really does help us at a time like this, where we have kind of limited income coming in with our programs. So just, they're Share Justo is somebody, local person, past resident, right away, send in an upgraded membership. And, that was really just, I don't know, we all just felt so supported by that. And then I've had a number of board members who sent in their FOB memberships, or sent in an increased FOB membership. So the membership program is something that at this time can kind of help us, because it sort of enables us to continue to pay people and keep the staff going, and hopefully develop programming, so that we can offer back to you. One thing that we will be rolling out next week, and I thought I could announce it here, is that we are going to offer kind of a one-time only thing that, and this is something we thought really hard about how to frame this, but we would like to extend the ability for people to choose, if they're in a position to do so, and we understand that everybody's in a different financial situation, but if you're in a place where you can become a member, upgrade your membership, renew your membership, we will extend a 25% discount on up to $200 purchase, either in the clay business, in education, or in the gallery. So, for a $50 membership, you basically could get your, that value back in one of our programs. But for us, we didn't want to just come out and say, hey, we just need you to send us memberships, but we thought, what's a way that we can give back to the people who are going to support us through this time, and that maybe we can extend that support to you after the fact by taking a class or buying a pot or buying clay, So we'll be sending that information out next week, and if you're interested in hearing more about it, you could sign up on our email list, and that's on the Bray homepage. If you go down to the bottom right, there's a place where you could sign up, and then we'll keep you informed about that initiative. And for those of you who have already done so, we really thank you so much, and that discount would also extend to you as well, so we'll send you that information.
That's also a good segue to say thank you to the community students that I know are watching, or will view this video later, that have already donated their canceled class fees back to the Bray, or committed to extending that in the form of a voucher, which we're also offering, so that we can continue to offer programming in the future. I cannot tell you how helpful that is, not only for the Bray staff and for the programming, but also for the instructors that also rely on that income. So thank you. Truly thank you.
Yeah, that was amazing to see that response.
Yeah. Immediately, we saw community students responding in that way. So
yeah,
just shows the amazing community that is the Bray.
One thing I'll mention here, so I did carve out the interior of this foot. I tend to use this trim tool for that, because it's got this narrow kind of a nose here that enables me to get in there, get a nice angle. And then to test the thickness of it, you can tap the base of it, and just having thrown enough of these.
Let's see if I can get that sound.
That
nice hollow sound.
That sounds right to me. If it's too thin, it'll sound almost like paper, and if it's too thick, you don't really hear much of anything. So that seems just about right to me. And I mentioned this is sticking to the top here, but you can kind of pop it off and then check and see. I can check with my fingers the thickness of the wall versus the base. This actually feels pretty good.
It's a pretty good cup there, Steve.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I guess you've been practicing.
Yeah, I've made a couple of these in my life. And then I use a sponge just to smooth out that rim.
So no chamois or anything?
I don't use one. I like the sponge, but a chamois would work too. So you can kind of see. This foot's a little on the wider side, but I think that'll provide a nice stable base. So we'll kind of go with that for now. This was a different cup shape that I threw, where it has a little bit more of the volume at the base and then turns in and out, which I think this provides a nice place for your fingers to rest. It's also a nice rim for drinking out of. But, you know, just a subtle difference, but it'll provide a very different cup shape.
Ling Chen just said hello.
Ling, we miss
What's up,
you.
Ling?
So to put the next cup on, I'll take a sponge and I'll just kind of re-wet it just a tiny bit. And then press down on the top to get it to adhere. And then start back over again.
Steve, I'm recalling some of the questions from last video that we couldn't get to. There was a question about the difference in the porcelain.
Yes.
Can you explain that one a little bit for me?
Yeah, so this porcelain that I threw last week it's called Perry's, named after the one and only Perry Haas. And Perry developed this clay when he was a resident here, and he was trying to find like a whiter alternative to Grollig, but had similar throwing properties. So I believe he substituted the Grollig for super standard porcelain, which, according to the folks at the clay business, the pricing is actually very similar, but it just is a different kind of white, a little bit whiter than the Grollig might be. I'm finding that it throws quite well, actually. The Grollig body here at the Brave throws great. It's the clay that I've been using for years. But this clay throws almost as well as the Grollig. I have not fired it yet, so that's kind of the next step for me, is that I want to get enough pots to fill a kiln, and then I'm gonna fire it with my glazes just to see how the glazes react, if the crazing is very different, that sort of thing. I think the shrinkage is very similar to the Grollig, which is somewhere around 13%,
Okay.
something like that. But it also trims nicely too. Sometimes different porcelains can get a little bit choppy, you know, or they tear, but this clay is smooth as butter.
Like a stick of butter.
Yeah. I guess one thing I forgot to mention related to the membership thing, someone did ask, Louise Rosenfield, someone we all know and love, down in Dallas, Texas. She said that it might be helpful to share a little bit about, like, what do expenses look like at the Bray? Like, what does it take to operate a place like this? Which I think, you know, sometimes you just forget that there's like numbers attached to all this. But just, you know, to kind of give a very broad overview, like the Bray's annual budget, you know, so our annual expenses that we're sort of anticipating is about $1.4 million. So that means, on average, we have about $120,000 worth of expenses that we need to pay for, which includes utilities annually here, about $50,000, so it's about $4,500 a month. You know, we've got to pay for insurance, we've got to pay for supplies, I mean, all kinds of stuff. And, you know, I think we run a pretty, like, lean operation. Our employees, like the number of people that are working here, it's probably around like 20, you know, which includes interns, part-time staff, full-time staff. You know, not a lot of people to run a lot of different programs here. So, you know, one of the big expenses at the Bray, even though I don't think it's all that much money, is our payroll, which, you know, that's what's keeping people here in Montana and helping them support their families. So, you know, to contextualize, when we say, you know, and not just us, but other arts organizations, when we're saying, hey, we need help right now, you know, I get that that's hard for some people to do, and we're not asking them necessarily, but it's, you know, on our end, it's to help keep all these people working and keep providing the services, continue to provide the content and the experience here at the Bray. I mean, this is a special place, I think, for a lot of us. You know, it's sort of touched us in many different ways, and I mean, hell, I never thought I'd move to Montana until I came here as a resident, and then suddenly, you know, I've been here for almost 14 years. And if you're wondering, I am contractually obligated to wear an Archie Bray t-shirt at least 5 out of 7 days of the week.
How's that sound?
A little thick. better. Okay, you like this flip? I think I do. I've also heard, when I was starting out in ceramics, I feel like some of my teachers told me that you're not allowed to trim past a certain point, which I think for stoneware, maybe that makes sense because you're dragging the grog, so it changes the surface. But that's one of the things I love about porcelain is trim wherever you want. Trim the whole thing.
Steve, I have 2 questions for you from some of our viewers.
Sure.
Brooks Oliver, little
Brooks.
shout out.
Love you, Brooks.
Why do you bisque to 08? He always assumed that you bisque to 04.
Oh, good question. Well, the reason I bisque to 08 is because, and we'll see this a little bit in terms of my process with decorating, but I do inlay all the decoration, and then for not all the pots, but some of the pots, I actually will bisque it and then sand the edges so that I get a nice clean line. And it takes more time to sand something to 08 that's been fired to 06 than it would be to 08.
That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So something's just very particular.
Looks like somebody answered this, but I'll just say it again for viewers. Adam Field of Adam Field Pottery asked if the chuck was bisque fired, which it is. It's a bisque fired chuck.
It is bisqued. And if you look up there, I've got a whole arsenal of chucks that I've made over the years that serve different purposes. So this is my cup chuck. I'm just taking a little bit more weight out of the belly of this thing. It felt a little bottom heavy. Can I change the profile there? And then sometimes to finish this thing off, I'll use these little mud tool ribs and just smooth out the surface to get rid of any trimming lines. Oops. Okay. I think that looks good. Nice. Balance.
Nice, okay.
Feels good in the hand. Okay, so let's move on over to the decorating area. These are chucks that I use when I'm doing my decoration. And I'll show you a few how I do this. So let's take this cup, for example. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do what I like to call like a hanging motif. So I'll have a decorative motif or a pattern that will go along the rim of the pot. So to do that, I have to center my chuck, and then I'm going to put the cup inside here. And then this is the thing that I'm still not that great at, but I have to like level off the top of the cup. So I'm tap leveling. The term I just made up. I'm tap leveling the cup.
Just making it up as you go. I'm going to answer a couple questions.
Sure.
Emily Ann 99. Yes, Steve does use a mirror. I'll just show you real quick since I'm in this proximity what that looks like. Here we go. Okay, and then let's see here. Cursive Ceramics. Steve, can you say something about how the tabletop works, or the tabletop wheel works for you?
Yes. So here is this. I mentioned this last week. It's called the switch lift, and it is Tim up in Kalispell. I'm just blanking on Tim's last name at the moment, but he's a potter who makes these really cool growlers. And then he was having back issues, so he ended up designing and building this contraption, which is a steel platform that you can put your wheel on, and it runs off of a motor that's similar to what they use for motorcycle lifts when they're working on motorcycles. But then you can drop the height of it or raise the height of it depending on what you're working on. You know, I said this last week, it is a luxury. It's like, I mean, it wasn't cheap, but it was something that specific for me and my work. You know, I was changing over to standing and throwing because I was having back issues. But then I also make these pieces sometimes that are like 3 feet tall. So to be able to get it to the level that I need, has been just really helpful in the studio. So I felt it was worth investing in it. And here's his website. It's switchlift.com, where he sells it, and this is the logo. You can see that right there up on the light. And I think it's also a really nice piece of equipment. We have some over in the education classroom for people who have accessibility issues, or just trying to kind of deal with their own physical limitations. So that's been a nice thing for us. Okay, back to the cup.
All right.
So I've got my cup leveled, centered, and then this was another life-changing tool for me. There are these Mkm discs, and I'm not trying to be a hustle products or anything here. These things are actually I use them all the time. And what it is, it's basically it's taken a circle and it's segmented it into odd and even numbers. I used to just do this all by eye, and it took me forever, and I would never get it quite right. So this is helpful because, especially for cups, it's the right size for me, but it just helps me see where a 1/6 is, or an 1/8, or a 1/4. For this cup, we're gonna get a little crazy here and go with an odd number, 5s.
I've never seen you go crazy, Steve.
Yeah, I know. So here I can look at the blue 5, and I use a soft lead pencil.
Is that an ebony?
It is. Nice. You know your pencils.
I do.
Prismacolor. And I'll just make a light mark, and this mark will burn out in the firing. So that'll show me where my 5s are.
So you're not really carving into that cup. It's right on the surface.
Yeah, with the ebony pencil, it's just making a registration mark. Then, this is primarily the tool that I do all of my inlay with, which is a little chisel tip tool. They come in sets, I think, for printmaking into...
I think it's wood carving.
Wood carving, woodcut prints, things like that. But I just like this because it gives me a little bit of a channel. It carves a little channel into the clay that I can then fill later. So what I'll do here is I'm going to establish the top line.
I'm going to say hi from Nate Wilver. I believe that's...
What's up, Nate?
And then I'm going to say it's Jenna Nina, maybe? Does that sound...
Oh, okay. The motif I'm going to use here is one that you see often on Korean ceramics or sometimes on Chinese ceramics. And it's a little hanging motif. It'll look something like this. And then I'll fill it in. But the reason I usually draw the first one out is that then what I do is I take this compass. And this is a compass that I actually got from Dryden Wells down in St. Louis, and Andy Moon, which I still owe them a cup for. I got to send that to him. I used to use this compass, which is the one we all got in first grade. Mm-hmm. This one works pretty well for me. So what I'll find here is where does that pattern rest? So I'm going to find the point, and then I can just draw a line around the circle, around the cup. And I'm just making a series of registration marks for myself. So here I'm trying to find roughly a little bit smaller. This one here. How's the sound quality, by the way, everybody? Is it better than it was last week? I hope so. I'm also then going to try to find the center of this, and here I'm just going to eyeball that, so this will just help me. Okay. So now once I have all of those marks in place, then I'm going to go ahead and carve the shape.
I'm getting a lot of thumbs up and greats and excellent. I hope that is relative to the sound question. We're going to make that assumption. Yeah. Oh, sounds good. All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm also really excited about this gimbal that showed up this week.
Gimbal.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying playing with that in the quarantine.
And then if I screw up, which I just did, I take this little bamboo knife and then you can kind of erase that. You can see, should I turn myself a little bit?
As long as you're 6 feet away, Steve.
6 feet. Fine.
Oh, Mara Wright just asked what a gimbal is. I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty new to this, but as I understand it, the gimbal is that contraption that holds the phone while we're video recording and keeps it really smooth so you don't see my shaky arms. So as I kind of move like this, it's got that smooth pan. That's because I've got this contraption. Actually, since we have a mirror, let me just show you, Mara. Attach the phone. That's a gimbal.
So this would be Mara Wright of Gallery, Archie Bray fame.
And past resident.
And past resident. And recent Alfred grad.
She's really getting after it.
Lindsay, did you want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff y'all have been working on in education?
Sure, yeah. I'm so focused on trying to keep you in frame. Yeah, you know, education, as I'm sure from what I'm hearing from my counterparts kind of across the field, we're all certainly affected by this quarantine because we deal with rooms full of people. And so it's really difficult to offer in-person educational opportunities when you can't be within 6 feet or even in the same room with anybody else. So we've been pivoting and taking this time to explore some other options for serving students, especially in a remote fashion. And while our aim is to keep up with the demand now, it's also kind of a long-term effort for us. So hence the gimbal, hence the video recording of demonstrations. So some of the projects that we're working on, which I know a lot of organizations are doing this as well. But we're doing video demonstrations. So we have one coming from Sunshine Cobb and Nicholas Danielson. We're also offering that up. We're kind of designing a new class structure for those that might not always be able to come to the Bray, and whether that's for programming that looks kind of like our community classes or workshops, as well as kids programming, which is pretty exciting for us. So for us, I think it allows us to reach a much wider audience, or at least that's my hope, and it allows us to kind of keep working in this period of time. So some of the things to look forward to aside from the videos, we've been working with the clay business to offer kits. So we can have a video, say like Nick Danielson just demoed his tar paper technique where he uses stencils to make forms, and he's been working with the clay business to offer that as a kit. So you can actually order those pre-cut templates for a cup and a bowl and a vase, and then we have a video that goes along with it so that you can get that demo at home. Other things that we've been working on is a at-home project kit for families with kids.
Those are great.
Yeah, that's going to be great. With the shutdown, we didn't quite get to making the video, but I have clay in my car, and I plan on making that available for you folks as soon as I can. And since it's an at-home project, I think that's actually perfect to do from home. So stay tuned. We've got that coming, as well as Sadie Clarendon, who's one of our interns, has been working on a online zine that you can print out at home or just view online. Craft in the time of quarantine. So stay tuned for that, for exercises to keep your creativity alive while you're at home. So, you know, not everything's bad. We're staying busy.
We're doing our best to try to be productive.
Yeah.
And creative.
I do have to say, I am so grateful for my coworkers. They're creative, they're innovative, they're positive, and they really didn't skip a beat.
Yeah.
Actually, I've been pretty impressed.
It's so true. I think, like, you know, this kind of thing, we talked a little bit about this last week, it can be paralyzing. I mean, it can just sort of like stop everything dead in its tracks, and I feel like it's been doing that over and over, like, because things are changing so quickly. But, you know, the people that we work with, we're really lucky, is that, you know, it's kind of like, okay, well, how do we adjust to this? How do we pivot? How do we come up with new solutions, and just that attitude, I think, is like, it just makes us all feel like we have some support, with one another, because, we're all struggling. This is scary and frightening for everybody, and, people are having a really hard time with it, but then, it's like, the choice we have to make there is like, do we just sort of sit and do nothing, or do we kind of fight until, till the end? And I think, I feel like we're surrounded by people they're fighters.
That's right.
We're all fighters.
Scrappy. This is another little hanging decoration. I also had a question that came to me directly this week about people who were interested in buying work at the gallery. And in fact, Amy Miller, our sales gallery coordinator was it's all
my
good.
mouth is full of marbles. She had let us know that there have been a number of sales that came in online, and with this shelter-in-place thing, we're not exactly sure how that works in terms of like whether people can be coming in and packing stuff up. So please be patient with us. But I will say that those sales do really help, not just the Bray, but they help the artists tremendously, and they, it's really great because you can have a piece of art in your life that will hopefully make you feel, bring a little joy, but then financially it does help a lot of other parties. So thanks to those of you who bought work from the Bray online, and you can visit the website if you go to the Bray page, or it's is it gallery, Archie Bray Gallery something like that. If you go to the Bray homepage, there is a link that takes you to the sales gallery. Just as an FYI, there were some people too asking me about my cups, because I'm making these cups, so I think people were kind of curious about that. I just dropped off a whole bunch of stuff in the gallery yesterday, and then Amy and Anna kind of raced to get the stuff up online. So what I'm going to do personally is just this month, if you buy any of my work, it's going to be 100% going to the Bray, because it's something we're all trying to do, little things to help out. So if you're interested, you can go to the Bray webpage, and if you see anything, don't feel obligated, but the commission will be just going 100% to keeping us going here.
Nice.
Okay, so this is a little kind of a...
Is it a smiley face?
Yeah, we'll just call it a smiley face shape. So I'm doing this, just kind of stamping it in between these little marks here. And then, there we go. We've got a little hanging decor on the top of this cup. I use these little stamps. They're little pieces of typeset that have my initials. Very convenient. And I labeled them so I know where the top is, which took me like 5 years to figure that one out. And I just go ahead, stamp in my initials, and then I'm almost done. So the last part of my process with making these cups is the inlay, or in terms of the making. So typically with my work, I have been using a cobalt blue slip, or I have a red slip that I use that has copper in it. But for today, I'm going to show you how I do this inlay with a blue slip. By the way, I do want to mention something. So I'm inlaying, this is called inlay. I'm calling it inlay. It's basically what you're doing is you're carving a little channel out of the side of the clay, and then I'm going to fill that in with a colored clay, and that's going to be what is the decoration. The reason I really like this is because it's a very sharp line quality, and then there's also, for me, just kind of a reference to my my heritage. So inlay in ceramics developed in Korea. So it was a very uniquely Korean development way back in history. The Korean term for it is called sangam. What I think is funny is that we always call it mishima, which is a Japanese term, and I'm not 100%. researched this a bit, but from what I understand, Mishima is a town in Japan, but they're not really known for ceramic production. It's actually Shoko Terayama is from Mishima, and like she said, they're known for snorkeling. Which who would have thought? Plan your visit to Mishima, go snorkeling. But I think there's some connection where there was like a calendar, or there was some kind of a temple in Mishima, and there were these marks. The way that the marks on the calendar looked a lot like the tea bowls that were being inlaid from Korea. So this term of Mishima sort of stuck to that, and became this really interesting cultural overlay. Since I'm here in the U.S., I'm just calling it Inlay. That's what we're doing here.
Okay.
We're doing some Inlay. So I take my brush, and I'm going to fill in those spots with this luscious cobalt slip. I'm trying to get it in all these little holes, in all the lines, as much as I can. And there are different ways people do this. Like, I've landed on this method because it works for what I'm trying to get to, but some people will apply the slip maybe when it's a little drier, and then wait for it to dry completely and then scrape it off. Others sand it off. Some people use a wax resist and they carve through the wax and they just wipe it off. But this, and what I used to do actually is I would bisque this cup, and then when it came out of the bisque, I would sand it. This is to Brooks's question earlier, and then I'd fill it in with the slip, and then I would take a metal rib and just scrape it off. And I still do that for some forms. But then Julia Galloway showed me this awesome thing where I guess she was getting ready for a show, and she had like hundreds of cups to inlay, and she's trying to find faster ways to do it. So she took the cup over to the sink, and then she just turned on the water and then just wiped it off. And I just didn't think that would work, but I started testing it out. And I just load up the sponge here, and it totally works, and it saves me so much time.
And clay dust.
And clay
No
dust.
clay dust in the studio.
And I thought initially that I would lose a lot of the detail or line quality, and it kind of looks like that would happen because you get some of the porcelain dragging into there. But at least for me, when I went ahead and glazed these, it was fine. It looked just as good as it did before. So thanks to Julie Galloway for showing me that great little thing, and it's just saved me so much time in terms of inlaying these things. And I use it on cups. If I have larger pieces, I still do the sanding and then filling in with slip, but this works pretty well.
So Steve, I'm going to show them this cup over here on your...
Sure.
Okay. Just for some examples here.
Well, this might be kind of interesting. So I'll show you. This is a shelf of cups of little collaborations that I've done with a lot of people. So this is, you can kind of get a sense of what the inlay looks like. The blue is my cobalt and then the glaze. And then this is a piece that Melanie Sherman took, and then she China painted and lustered all these little beautiful details in there. So
that's great.
You could see there, 2016, when she was here as a summer resident. A lot of people know I've done a ton of collaborative pieces with Beth Lowe, and we had to figure out like how to make the materials that we use work and the underglazes. So oftentimes I'll make some cups and then I'll like send them in a car over to her, and then she'll send me back some things. So this is a cup that I made, and then I did this initial decoration with a landscape and some trees, and then she painted these great little characters in there. And then she's using her copper inlay and then her cone 6 glaze. So, you get a very different effect. That was this is one of my favorites. So, like I did these 2 banded inlaid decorative bands, and then she did these swimmers that are kind of doing the backstroke or the front stroke through that. So that was so clever. She's so smart. I love Beth Lowe. So anyway, that's some of the stuff that we've got kicking around the studio.
Steve, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
So I think it's easy to look at your work and kind of feel like it's so easy for you to make such beautiful work, but it obviously took you a long time. The way you talk about how long it took you to find certain tools. So I'm just curious, like this style, how long have you been working on this style or developing it?
Well, I think I started making pots. I mean, thankfully for me, I had a really great high school teacher who taught me how to throw, and I was hooked, right away. And and then I ended up going to college for it. Well, eventually going to college for ceramics, and then I transferred to Alfred, and that was the first time where I started using porcelain. And once I started using porcelain, I just totally connected with the material. I loved the history. I loved how it felt. I loved the color. And that was like the late 90s, mid to late 90s. So, I mean, I've been making pots since then, and mostly in porcelain. So, there is something about they talk about like the kinesthetic intelligence or the muscle memory, and when I'm throwing cups or trimming cups, like your body goes into this like motion that you're so used to. So yeah, I mean, it was built over literally thousands of cups, or pots that I've made. I mean, a lot of people have made way more than I have, but yeah, it's something that you just have to put in the reps. I think that's one of the things about being a potter. And I'm not even as dedicated of a potter as so many people in this country, but you got to put those reps in. It's like there's no substitute for just putting in the work and then making the things, over and over and over again. And then eventually they get better. And I'm still learning, I mean, I have so many aha moments in the studio where it's like, oh yeah, if I do this, it'll save me so much time. And you can see that with just simple tools or methods. So, I mean, we're all kind of working towards that. Well, I appreciate all of you joining me here for my studio work. I mean, it's not something that, people don't usually come in and visit me here, which is sometimes a good thing because I like to get work done. But we have so many of these artists working here who are all doing such different things, such amazing processes and aesthetic sensibilities. And our goal is to try to share that with you in the coming weeks. And I think right now, and this may change, but our hope is that we can start coming on Fridays with maybe different tours, different aspects of what's happening on the grounds, in the studios, in the buildings. And then Mondays, we may try to develop more of like an educational component. So demos for kids and parents or adults. We're still working those details out, but I feel like if we can get onto that kind of a schedule, it would be really nice for people to expect that.
Yeah. Corona willing.
Corona willing. I mean,
yeah.
This may change. We might be doing it from the basement next week. So, but we'll try our best to keep everybody engaged. I suppose the last thing is, did you want to walk out and try to see what?
Yeah, let me see if I've got you connected to. It's hard to know. It's your phone.
Oh, that's true. I might be running down.
Yeah. Let me...
It's going. That all of you are tuning in or engaging in some way. So whether it's through membership, buying work, tuning in, asking questions, offering feedback, like we're paying attention to all of it, and like it's so great to see like our friends, our former residents, artists, people who've been engaged, community members. I think if we can all kind of stick together, we'll get through this and hopefully a lot stronger resolve, when it's all said and done. So
most definitely.
Yeah. So why don't we go? We'll check out Katie and Victoria are loading a soda kiln, so we can go see.
Yeah, let's see
how they're doing. And
bear with us as we exit the building because I do not know what's going to happen to our feet. So learning every day. Okay. Lead the way.
Here we go.
Thanks.
Now, with the shelter-in-place order, we may have to shut down the studios for a period of time. It's in place until April 10th, but we're still trying to understand what the restrictions are for us. We have notified the residents that they'll likely have to switch to a home studio of some sort for at least the next couple weeks. But we're making decisions on that right now.
with all of your protective gear.
Yeah.
Loving it.
So Katie Driver, who's a current long-term resident, and Victoria Kristen here from Portland, who's our visiting artist this month. And they are respirated and loading a soda kiln.
Indeed.
Can I take a look inside? Let's share the treasure trove here.
Yeah, we were just talking about, or I was just about to say, maybe we could put a taller brick on top of there, and that would break up that like tight spot.
So you're thinking a taller brick kind of up here?
Right here. Just
I
because
see.
Right now, those two shelves are almost butted up against each other in order to fit that bigger vase there. So it might be better if it's a little taller, just so there's a gap for the vapor to move through.
Let's just use it chip.
Yeah.
A couple of days.
Okay. Perfect.
Very cool. Wow, it's tight.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Yeah.
This is a classic example where you think you don't have enough work to fill in, and you always have too much work.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Too much work rather than too little.
Indeed. Always.
Yeah.
Are you going to Cone 10?
Cone 6.
Cone 6, okay.
Cone 6 soda?
Yeah.
It's very experimental.
Yeah,
Good.
It's a whole new adventure.
Great.
I bet some folks will ask what form of soda, like how do you insert it into the kiln?
Oh, yeah. We're going to spray it in,
Spray it in.
like when cone 5 is starting to bend.
When cone 5 is starting to bend, okay.
I'll put it in, and then the temperature will probably drop, so then we'll be kind of stalling it a little while, but that's all right too.
Okay, so temperature drops when you enter it.
The other thing that we did is, I made these little pelts out of wadding, and I'm putting a little salt in.
Oh.
Normally I use like a pickling salt, but I couldn't find any.
Oh, so
So we poured it out and kind of are making the crystals a little smaller. And then I load it up in these little wadding things. And then you can use these over and over again.
oh, great.
But you want to, when you put them in the kiln, you want to lift them up off the shelf. Otherwise, it just fumes here. But
I
if
see.
you lift them up on a brick or a broken shelf, just kind of juices up stuff. a
Yeah,
little bit.
nice.
Yeah.
So a little soda solution that you'll spray in and pickling salt, or in this case, ice cream salt.
That's it.
Okay, sounds great. Great. Well,
All right. Well, I think we'll let you back to work.
Okay, well, stay safe, everybody else.
thank you so much.
Maybe we can sign off up here.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Well, thanks again for joining us this week. We'll try to be back on Monday if we can, and then definitely next Friday we'll have something to show at the Bray. But send us your suggestions, and if you have things that you want to take a look at or have us show you, we're more than happy to try to oblige for that. So again, if you want to sign up for the email list on the Bray website, go to the homepage archiebray.org, and then from there you can sign up for membership, buy work, order things at the clay business, or just say hello. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you next week.
See you, everybody. Thanks for watching.